Unfortunately, we had our scheduled speaker for today, unfortunately, have to reschedule on us. She'll be here, I think, in May the 12th or sometime later. But so I reached out actually to our 3 newly inducted members with a brave question, and that is, would they be willing to come up and share, about 5 minutes or so about themselves so that we might get to know each of them better? And amazingly, very quickly, yesterday afternoon, all 3 of them said yes. And all 3 of them actually showed up today to do it. So these are very, very brave new members that we have. So very grateful for that, for them to come and share the spotlight a little bit. And I was wondering perhaps if we might do it alphabetical order on last name, which means Seema, that brings you up first, if you don't mind. But come share us a little bit about yourself. I gave them some teaser questions to start with, if they wanted to use those or whatever they want to do. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Most of you know I'm Seema Balwanii, and I've introduced myself a couple of times, so I was trying to think about something more exciting to tell you, other than where I went to school or what I'm doing. I worked at NOAA, as I've mentioned, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and I've worked on a lot of marine conservation issues such as coral reefs, fisheries, and climate change. And I think the most exciting part of my job was to go out on cruises in the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands. I was based in Hawaii at the time, and run a team that collected marine debris off the coral reefs, as well as collected information and data from different sensors and instruments that we had in the Pacific about salinity and other oceanographic information. But the fishery net removal was a very exciting part of that. I was out at sea for a month on a 224 foot boat, and we would launch small boats, and we would go out in sometimes hazardous conditions and go out and physically get in the water, cut around the coral reefs to delicately pull these nets out of the water and put them on a boat and then bring them back to Honolulu for recycling. They would be used for energy. And so, when I say dangerous conditions, it sometimes got really crazy. We were trying to outrun storms, like big, powerful storms that moved in with thunder and lightning out in the Pacific Ocean, the middle of the Pacific Ocean, trying to get back to the boat. Sometimes we were caught and, the waves were 5, 8 feet, and we would be trying to get from the small boat onto the big boat. And it was just a big adventure. But the important part of that is we were trying to save coral reefs, save fish life, the sharks that got caught in these nets, these gigantic nets that were roaming around and ended up on the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands because it was the only landmass in the Pacific. So that was one of the highlights of my work. But I have to say that doing public service, and here I'm speaking for government workers, I made a decision at the beginning of my career to not go after lucrative, high-paying jobs so that I could perform public service. And doing this job was very, very important to me. And I believe in the work that we were doing in terms of helping conserve wildlife, being able to protect wildlife in the ocean, protect the coral reefs, protect the communities that depended on these services that they provided for sustenance and for tourism, for whatever purpose. So I found the work extremely rewarding. And as you know, climate change has its ups and downs in politics, but it was never a political issue. None of my work to me was a political issue. It was doing what's best for us, for future generations. And the climate work for me fell into that as a nonpartisan issue of knowing what's happening, collecting the data, being able to present it to people in an honest way, and also to hope that people would make decisions based on that data that we were collecting. So I can talk a little bit more about my personal life. I am a traveler. I've been to over 50 countries just on my own. I usually travel solo, and I love traveling solo. And that is my favorite thing to do, is get up and go on a trip. I always have my passport nearby. Other things I like to do, I'm a big gardener, I'm a big reader, I love to cook, I love to bake, I love to read, and mostly all of these things are mellow, and I enjoy being mellow at home or out and about with friends, enjoying Dunedin. I had a great time at Mardi Gras last night, so I think that's it for me.
I don't know, I didn't ask the three before this, but if we have some time after that, and if you all be willing to take some questions, people may have some questions. But next, though, I'm going to call on Jeff Clark. C comes after B.
I'm going to use your questions. I've lived in Dunedin. My wife and I have lived in Dunedin for a year now. And we spent 2 years driving up and down the east and west coast of Florida. And my wife said, it has to be Dunedin. So I said, okay, I whatever you say. And then I have 2 daughters. One lives in Ocala. She's a pharmacist. The other daughter, younger daughter, she's 24. She just accepted a job with an investment management firm that relocated for tax reasons from Los Angeles to Tampa. And so she starts next week after next. So I spend most of my time with my family. I used to run a lot, but I don't anymore. So I walk a lot. And it's amazing how you can spread that out over an entire day, just 4 or 5 miles a day. And I enjoy that. By the way, I live downtown, and I consider all of downtown my backyard. So I just roam. Okay. And as far as the club helping me, we're both retired, so I really don't need to network or anything like that. But what I do, everybody has good causes. For me, it's kids, cancer, and the military. So I want to devote most of my time to that. And that's it. Other than that, I'm a Clemson Tiger. Okay. We snuck into the playoffs this year. It was, and then we got beat pretty soundly by University of Texas. And my older daughter, who was an FSU grad, said, she started giving me a hard time. And I said, your team only won 2 games this year. All right. So that's all I have.
And at the end of the alphabet, Rob Scholl.
Hi, my name is Rob Scholl. Also Captain Rob. I run a small inshore fishing company where I take people fishing. I grew up in the area. I went to CCC, which is in Clearwater, and it's crazy how this area has changed so much. US 19 used to be a 2-lane highway, and Countryside Mall used to be orange groves. This whole area was orange groves. I then went to the University of Colorado at Boulder. All my friends went to Florida schools, and I just wanted something different. So went out there. My sister followed me, and then eventually my brother. So we're all buffs. Before I was applying, or before I decided to go to Colorado, my grandfather and grandmother are huge Clemson alumni and donors, like big time. The bell is called Betsy. That was my grandmother, and when I went to apply there, it was, it really wasn't a fit for me. So I go into the admissions office, and my grades were like B's, C's, some A's, mostly in PE. We sit down with the admissions officer, and he's like, well, it looks like you got into Clemson. And I'm like, oh, wow. And I walk out, and they're like, you did it all by yourself. I'm like, yeah, right. You know? Anyway, that's my Clemson story. So after graduating from Colorado, I messed around a little. A lot of my friends, when you go to school in Colorado, you're met halfway. Like a lot of those kids that go there are from California. So I think 50% of the University of Colorado is California. So I ended up moving to California for a little and just dabbling around for a few years, you know. And then I decided I want to get my life together, do some pretty cool community servicey. I love the environment. So I applied to become a fish and wildlife officer. So that was a lengthy process that took about a year to get accepted. And then they sent me, when I got accepted, they're like, you can go to Miami to do your first stint, or you can go to DeSoto County. And then DeSoto County is like, there's no one there. And then Miami is just Miami, right? So I'm like, I didn't really know what to do. I had to choose on the spot. And my dad had a friend that kind of I told the guy I was going to pretend I was going to call him right back. So I called my dad, and he's like, you need to go to Miami, because if something happens to you, you'll have all these other agencies that can back you up. Because we work alone. We're in the woods alone. It's crazy. You're going up to people that have guns at night, and it's a lot of times just you. So like you got to just know what you're doing, you know? Like, so anyway, so I chose Miami, and after a very rigorous academy, it was rough. Like 4:30 in the morning every day, we started running. It was a Navy SEAL who was running it, and he trained the lone survivor guys. That book that was written on, he was Chief Hall. That was who he was. So there was no pulling punches. It was very intense. So I was the class leader of my class, 33 cadets. And then when I got to Miami, it was crazy. Like the culture is completely different than here. The culture it's basically the capital of South America. The ideas and ideals they kind of bring from their own country there. And there's definitely a cultural barrier to understanding how important the environment is and how it's a huge asset to Miami and to the state of Florida. I mean, people come here for vacation, like that's billions and billions of dollars just in this area, and then you just spread it all around. So they come for the clear water, they come for the beautiful weather, and they come for the beaches, they come for the manatees, they come for the fishing, they come for all of it that has to do with nature. And you know, when you have people dynamiting reefs, send down the dynamite, it explodes underneath the water, and then all the fish float up, and then you collect them. That reef, what is that, 10,000 years that it's going to take to regrow? So the short-sightedness, it's hard not to kill somebody when you find them doing that. So you have to use a lot of restraint, and they just don't understand, because that's what they did in their country. You know what I mean? And then you prosecute you come to court, and the prosecuting attorney is just out of law school, and he's making $35,000 a year, $40,000 a year, and his caseload's enormous. And they put the fish and wildlife cases with the rape, with the drugs, with the domestic violence, with the murder cases. So when you make a huge poaching case that takes months, they don't understand how to prosecute it, and the judge doesn't get it. So in Miami, like I made a case that was just incredible, and they were like $700 fine. It's like, are you out of your mind? That's like 60 undersized lobsters, speared snook, and queen conch, which are federally protected species. Now that's in Miami-Dade County. If you go right over to Monroe County, which is the Keys, you do that, you're not allowed back. They'll bury you under the jail. So which is crazy, but it's the same ecosystem. Key Largo actually extends up into Miami-Dade County, you know? And then another thing about the NOAA kind of stuff and fish and wildlife. The fish and wildlife, they release peacock bass and these invasive species into our environment, which are awesome and super fun to catch. Now, Everglades National Park, they kill these things because they are not native species. So you have one agency releasing game animals to sell fishing license, and then the other federal agency going right back and electrocuting them and killing them. You know, so there's that disconnect there, which is which I'm sure you've dealt with NOAA and stuff like that. And then I got a NOAA story for you. So at Fish and Wildlife, you don't make that much money. So it's kind of like a JV before you go to the varsity. A lot of guys would go to Customs Border Patrol, Marine Interdiction. It pays like $100,000 a year, step pay. There was no step pay with Fish and Wildlife, unfortunately. And then, or there'll be NOAA officers, or they'll do just regular Border Patrol, or they'll go to ICE. So that's basically the evolution. And some people stay, but it's not. A lot of people don't stay. So the NOAA officers, they have to go on these boats for multiple weeks, or not multiple weeks. And they live on the boat with the people that are fishing. So if there's a violation that takes place, they got to write them up and then live with them on the boat after that. Are you insane? Like, that's crazy. And a lot of these commercial guys, they can't get jobs anymore. So a lot of them are like felons. You know what I mean? They're meth addiction's like a big thing with these guys, you know. So I just couldn't imagine doing that. So I think one guy got locked in like a compartment for 3 weeks. Like after he wrote him up, they just locked him in there. You know? So anyway, I digress. That's my fish and wildlife life. So then after that, I went to chase money. And then I got a job out of San Francisco doing like e-commerce merchant processing. So I did really well with that. I bought a house in Truckee, and then that kind of dried up, and I really wasn't happy doing that. We wanted to make a move, so I couldn't sell my house to save my life. And then COVID hit, and everyone from San Francisco wanted to move to Truckee, which is Lake Tahoe, like North Lake Tahoe, and boom, was able to like make a really good killing on my house that I couldn't even sell before, but because of COVID, just it sold. So I made a complete lifestyle change. I had my fish and wildlife background, so I decided to bought a boat, got my captain's license because I let that expire, and then started my fishing, taking people fishing, and then also teaching them about the environment along the way. You know what I mean? It's not just like raping the ocean and seeing how much like fish you can take. You know, I try to like kind of educate them a little, like, you know, fish has a soul too, man. You know, like let's you know, right? You know what I mean? Like, be grateful that the fish presented itself to you and allowed you to catch it. You know what I mean? There's a whole lot too once you're like seeing it on a daily basis. So I think what really made the big leap for me and my like happiness and my like choosing my new lifestyle was developing a relationship with God. I really do. I think that was the key for me. I always had good intentions. What do the Baptists say? The path to hell is paved with good intentions. You know, I had good intentions, but I wasn't putting it on paper. You know what I mean? So that's why I want to join Rotary, because I know I can put it on paper here. You know, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Any